Here.
Board Member Matthew Menza.
Here.
Board Member Talis Salamatian. City Council Member Marsha Martin. You have a quorum.
All right, great. Thank you. Start with a public invited to be heard. Seeing there's no one here, I'm still going to open it for formality's sake. And then we'll close the first public invited to be heard and move on to approval of the May 9th, 2024 minutes. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? Vice Chair Jordan first.
That was on line 12, page 1. I was just going to note that Marcia came in before we were done, right?
No, she didn't.
She didn't come at all? Okay.
No, she was in the other.
I was imagining it.
She was in the other meeting next door, and we
Okay,
talked
I
to her
thought-
after the
oh,
meeting,
maybe
but
we'd
she did not
adjourned.
officially
Okay.
attend the meeting.
Line 4 on page 2, it says Vice Chairperson Jordan stated that renters will be, I have no authority to state that, but I would say Vice President Jordan stated council discussed adding that renters will be required to sign the abrogation easement. They talked about having people sign it, not just at closing, but that it might be included in rental agreements, since that's looking to be some high density if they develop that. So stated council discussed adding
Okay.
that renters would be required. Thank you.
Thank you. Levi, did you have something too?
I had line 30, stated there have been 17 complaints. There have been,
Page
on
1.
page 1, line 30, sorry. There have been 17 household complaints, not complaints total, so it should be household complaints from households. 17 households.
Thank you. Anyone else notice anything? If not, I would take a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I move we approve the minutes as amended.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Moved and seconded?
I'll second it.
Okay, I've got double seconds. Any discussion?
Do you get dessert with that?
I would love some dessert, but no, just 2 seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Updates from the airport manager. Levi, floor is yours.
Got some quick updates for you. Not a whole lot going on besides paperwork lately, but that's a good thing, right? Fire inspections officially kicked off at the airport. Really good response from those back so far. Mostly people are really excited. I get a lot of positive response because we did the fire extinguisher. We paid for the recert tag on them. A lot of positive response from that. In fact, so much to the point where we're going to go ahead and do it again halfway through too for the people that missed it. It was a minor budget item for the airport, and people really seem to like that. It seems like the biggest headache of them getting that was like, finding a spot to go to, take it, and we just do it all at the airport for them. So we'll probably be doing that. That's going well. Wildlife fence. I did see today that the procurement department finally got a bid package out to the engineers. The engineers were reading that when I talked to them earlier today, and they're going to forward that directly for me to the FAA. The FAA did say that they wanted to look at that prior to the city putting it out because they were concerned that the city hasn't done that before, and so they wanted to make sure that they looked at it before they put it out. So that should be finishing up. Hopefully that was finished up today behind closed doors, if not very, very soon. I know that it's headed off the FAA to make them happy, so hopefully that makes them happy with securing our grants for this year and not having to put them off another year. That's kind of the feeling I got from talking with our FAA representative, Todd Minich, so that's very good. Let's see. I will skip air show so Melinda can talk about the details of that here in a little bit. We have now gone through 2 mows at the airport. Super happy. So much cleaner than last year. Clemente, he's got a new company. He's starting this year. Who's doing that? Super responsive. I called him. He missed some things. I called him, and he was out later that day fixing it all at the airport, and it looks really, really good. So happy with that. Earlier today, completed the first quarter stormwater inspection on the airport. That went really, really well. Stormwater people are super excited. They said we're the only ones that have been responsive as a department for actually correcting the issues. So they were happy with that. So that's completed for now. kind of tied in with that, kind of not. Still ongoing, the master drainage survey on the airport. Just as a refresher, master drainage survey is being done so we can eventually, excuse me, in a bubble, eventually do some development on the airfield. That's kind of the last unknown if someone wanted to come in and do hangars. We had several people in kind of show interest in developing hangars, and it always kind of got hung up in the planning spot where they said, well, we don't know what, drainage we would require you to do prior to building hangars. Doing a master drainage survey to make sure that comes. So that should be finishing up this month is what it's looking like. They're on track. They're doing some of the last modeling now. We were going to have one of our closer to the end meetings this Tuesday, but we had too many people on vacation, so we kind of shuffled that off to next week. But I'll know more about that next week. I think that's CAOA conference. Recently returned last week from the Colorado Airport Operators Conference. They held it in Vail this year, which was really nice because all the airports, kind of went to a central spot in the state. So people were pretty happy with that, and it was Vail too. So people were happy with that. But very interesting CAOA this time. Much legislation has come out. House Bill 1235 was signed by the governor. We've talked about that here before. That was the bill that's essentially the main point of that was the transition away from leaded fuel and the Colorado initiative towards that. Not a whole lot of input on it, and people are still digesting it to figure out what's going on with it. From the outside, it seems to not have a whole lot of teeth to potentially hurt small airports. It's lining itself pretty much with the FAA's goal of having unleaded fuel by 2030. So it very much feels like the FAA was kind of the state was aligning themselves with FAA to, maybe perhaps take care of some concerns while still pursuing or copying the federal government's kind of stated goals, is what it looks like. It does. I want to say it gives you $100 credit for getting a supplemental type certificate for switching your plane to unleaded fuel gas. Now, it prioritizes. I think it's top 10% of funding for transition to unleaded fuel projects from airports. So they're supposed to give priority to airports that are seeking funded for transitioning to unleaded fuel. This is a quick summary of that. Also, the Airport Reauthorization Act was signed by Biden too, and that gets into our AIP, into our yearly grants, our entitlement funding for the airport. Again, that's brand new. The FAA said don't ask us any questions. We just barely read it, but it's looking like that potentially be some more money for us. I know that they upped the FAA's coverage for that I think it was 95% now instead of the 90. So an extra 5% if nothing else, plus more funds in there. Kind of big news at the conference was that there was a whole bunch of grant assurances that were originally recommended for that didn't necessarily make the cut in the end. So we as airports aren't quite subjected to the additional legal headaches that we might otherwise be. So that's good. Also, again, very, very new. Can't talk too much about that just from point of no one really knows how it's kind of pan out quite yet. Other things at the conference. I didn't bring my conference notes, so I apologize. I printed them all off just for this, and then I forgot. I sat in on the hangar development, logically, because we've been dealing with that, and that was an interesting. Talked about some leasing issues with Centennial Airport and those presentations. What other big things came out of it? And Harrison, when he talks, he can talk. Harrison was there also. He can add to anything that I might have missed. There was, of course, talk about the lawsuit going on between Boulder County and Jefferson County. And for those of you who haven't heard, Eric, I'm trying to think of his name, Eric Dahl will be the new airport manager down at Rocky Mountain Metropolitan. He starts actually the 17th of this month. So I think, what's today? Okay, so he starts Monday then. He'll be starting down there at Rocky Mountain Metro. It's a good conference roundabout update. I think that's what I got for airport updates. Were there any questions? I'm sorry, I should have paused for questions if you're there. I had an energy drink earlier.
Any questions from anybody?
Good.
Okay. I don't have anything to add on the conference, Levi, beyond
Okay.
what you covered. I mean, I'm there for my day job, so my objective's a little different
Little
than Levi's
different.
is.
Harrison's
But-
objective is schmoozing. That's what it is.
and my objective is commercial service airports. Let's say that. Yeah, it's there for a reason. All right. Any questions for Levi? Otherwise, we'll move on from updates from the airport manager. I don't have any information items listed. So our action item for the evening is the annual report. You all have a copy of this in front of you. I apologize you didn't get it until yesterday. I did not compile this until yesterday. This looks a little different than some of our past years in that it is shorter. It covers the kind of bare minimum we're required to do to the council, which is really that work activities page. And then I've included just a couple things that are we include the economic impact because I always like tying what the airport does back to dollars in the community, and highlighted the air show and expo, so it's on the record with them as well. I would love any feedback, edits, typo corrections, anything you see in there, or just general discussion. I'd kind of open it up there if anyone has anything. Vice Chair Jordan.
I didn't see any edits. I thought it was really well done. Congratulations. And can Levi then add on, do you need to do the number of operations and more of those, the financial picture from the city side? Can you add that on to the end of this now?
We potentially could. I guess that kind of depends on what you guys want to see the vision look like. There's going to have to be two reports anyway,
Okay,
because the city has their own format that they like it in.
Okay.
So I will also do that. It might, a nice thing might be eventually once that's completed, and I should make a note of that to touch base with the transportation department about when they want to do that. Is we could just maybe put that on the end as, the nice report and then the official breakdown of how the city likes to see it too, something like that.
Because I know the year-end report is looking back and recapping what has happened, and that I appreciate that we put, what has happened, measure it and show the progress, and then also show what the future is looking like. So, very well done.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. Any other comments? So this is a requirement that we have to approve by the middle of the year. So we're a whopping 17 days ahead of schedule here. If there are no other comments, I would take a motion to approve and have this be ready to submit. Oh, sorry. Hold on 1 second. Dan, did you have a question, or are you going to make a motion?
I have a question.
All right.
So,
Dan, hold on. Let me turn on your mic. You were there first. I'll get to you.
so we all know that we're trying to attract more business revenue to Vance Brand. Has anybody had a discussion about what type of businesses we would target for that increased revenue?
There's been discussions in the past with the Economic Development Committee and with the city in general about targeting. And if you look into some of the documents that are on the airport's website too, like the Southwest Development Plan, it goes into that a little bit too, on kind of what they're looking at. The short answer to that is essentially a mix. Of course, there's a hangar shortage on the Front Range, so T-hangars are always going to be a point. But traditionally speaking, in the last 5 years or so in Colorado, the most profitable hangars have been box hangars and stuff like that. And having said all that, that's just hangar space. Ultimately, it would be great to attract more businesses and stuff like that towards the airport too, because then you're also looking at multipliers and generating, bringing money into the community and supporting, creating jobs and stuff like that. So that's also a big goal. That's kind of something that the I guess short answer is the hope it's going to be a mix. And then the question becomes, how do we get to the mix that we want? How do we attract people to come, stuff like that? So the baby steps to that are getting to the point where we actually can start doing this stuff. So that's what the survey's for and stuff like that.
Any thoughts to what it would take to attract more commercial flights into the airport?
Commercial flights? Yeah, there's never going to be any commercial flights probably at this airport. charter flights, stuff like that. Yeah, that'd be great. That's the ultimate thing that we're really trying to focus on is in improving the face of the airport, making it a place a destination where individuals and also importantly their pilots want to fly, because that is a part of the decision making when they come to it. What's it look like when you fly in? What amenities does it have? Stuff like that. All of that's big ticket item talking points for sure.
Yeah, that was my next observation. It would require more enhanced facilities at the FBO.
Yep, for sure. That's a big point of the discussion.
Can you give any FEO update?
Not at this moment.
Never mind.
Can you hit the button and then I'll turn them on?
Did I do it right?
Yeah, now you're good.
Yeah, commercial operation. Part 135 is commercial operations, charter flights.
True. Good point.
Part 121 is obviously airline type, on demand, on time. But the big long pole in the tent is the fact that we have a 4,900-foot runway, and you're not going to get any more Part 121 or 135 operations in here without getting that runway to 6,000 feet.
Yeah, and you're correct. Yeah.
And as long as we keep building around the airport like we are, we're never going to get that because the FAA is not going to allow it.
I agree.
So
Yeah.
I'm kind of trying to understand what we're doing in terms of the manager and the advisory board in terms of being assertive about that particular issue.
And that's something that there's this continuous conversation about too. It would be certainly ideal. Much length of runway would kind of put us at the point where we would be at the ideal capacity for pilots not having to consider so much the takeoff weight and stuff like that. Come in, they fill up with fuel and fly out of here. Unfortunately, right now we're in a point where the FAA doesn't want us to have a longer runway. The city doesn't want us to have a longer runway. The people who want us to have a longer runway are sitting in this room. So it's a delicate conversation because we want it to happen, so we don't want to burn bridges and stuff like that. But so we don't want to preclude it from happening. But we got to kind of take a look at the environment the way it is right now, and as we move forward, try to find the most positive way of getting there. What I continue to say, and I still think is true, is to get to that point, we'd have to have a very good partner. So to get that point, we have to have a reason to have that runway extension. So I got to have someone says, hey, I'm moving my drone business, or more to the point, I've already moved my drone business from, Virginia. We're here. We need this runway, guys. Come on, build this. At that point, I can start motivating the city, which I can then potentially start motivating the FAA. Because if they say, okay, you're right, that business could certainly use that kind of runway length, then I can actually get grant money behind me, I can get city money behind me, and I can get stuff built.
So I have a business. I'm moving my airplane to Greeley because I don't have a long enough runway here, and I'm
So-
going to start a business. I mean, my business is starting and moving. So, aerospace flight test services with a jet, and I can't operate it out of here in the summertime. So, there's one data point for you if you need to use that. But
Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah.
I think future agendas we might want to talk about having a FAA rep come down and talk to us. We can talk about that on the next one here.
Yeah, and-
Number 7. But I'd love to hear from the FAAs tell us that they don't want to lengthen our runway because all over the country with federal money, little airports are getting their runways lengthened all over the place.
I mean, I'm sure they would come and talk to. They've usually been pretty. I've had them offer several times to come and talk to city council, so I'm sure they probably would come down and talk to the airport advisory board too. If we set something up long enough in the future, we could probably get them to come visit with us. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, this is frustrating. We've talked about this
Yeah.
off and on for the entire time I've been on the board. The city is not in favor of it, despite it being the official master plan for the airport. Despite it being on the approved master plan that the FAA would fund it, the FAA is not interested. I've had the conversations with them as well.
Yeah.
I think the state would like to see it. The state aviation aeronautics department.
I would
and,
say,
and I'm not.
yeah.
None of this is disagreeing with you in any way, shape, or form. It's just, I think the FAA doesn't have the appetite to spend that money, basically.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So I
don't-
actually, had an interesting conversation because there for a while it was looking like they were going to make us do a new master plan. The official kind of unofficial word is that they kind of aren't pushing us so hard for that now because it looks like the city is doing something about our zoning. And on top of that, the lawsuit came out from Boulder County against Jefferson County. And the FAA is trying to be a little hands-off as far as public exposure to stuff like that. Right now, they don't want more things going on at the moment. During that conversation with the FAA, it also came out, I said, well, at least we've already got the runway extension in our master plan. And it kind of said, well, we don't know if we would approve that to continue on into your next master plan. So the next big fight is going to just be keeping the current runway extension we have in the master plan to move on to the next master plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Motion on the annual report? Vice Chair Jordan.
I move we accept the 2023 airport annual report as it is written.
Moved and seconded.
Oh, it was a second, okay.
Sorry.
You told you.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Annual report approved. All right. We're already on to final public invited to be heard. I open the floor. Seeing no one, we'll close the final public invited to be heard and board counts and staff comments. Board members, what else is on your mind tonight? Or want to go back to anything that was unsatisfying that already was talked about?
Yeah, let's do that.
Mr. Menza.
Yep, sorry, I'm the new guy here, so I'm going to ask a lot of weird questions, but since we kind of dove into that, first of all, about Boulder, the FAA has been very, very blunt about, I've read 2 of the letters that the FAA sent to Boulder, very blunt from the FAA saying they absolutely support Boulder Airport existing and Boulder has no right to claim that land because it's in perpetuity. So that, I don't know if you guys have seen that letter, but pretty blunt letter from the FAA that I can send it to you, Melinda. It's pretty impressive. Anyway, I just think in the future we talk about. It sounds like you guys have been around the circle with this many times, but I'm just having a hard time understanding how we spent all these bills were passed in the last 3 years with the federal government, trillions and literally hundreds of billions for transportation. And between grant money and Fed money, I can't believe that we can't get some. Now, if you're saying that it's because the city council and the mayor doesn't want to support it, then that's different. But I'm pretty certain there's a ton of grant money and federal money. And the FAA has made it very clear they're very much in favor of supporting growing their infrastructure for aviation. So I'm just confused on that part. Maybe we can tackle that in future agendas somehow, break that down. But I think that's something we need to get on public record in terms of discussing that openly as a group, because this airport's dying. It's got to start growing. And so, when you give a 20-year lease to people, nobody wants to come here. They give 50, 60-year leases in every other state. And so there's issues, and I just want to see us talk about them so we can see if there's anybody that can help us with them. So if that makes sense.
And there's some discretionary grant money that is out there. In fact, something, I think you weren't here at the last meeting, but we talked about, we did apply for a $750,000 discretionary grant with the FAA. Gosh, I guess it's been about a month or so ago. That was an interesting discretionary grant because it came out and it was an open and close. I want to say it was like 3 weeks or something like that. So they opened it. We had to rush out to the engineers, get a discretionary grant all written up, and then shoot it out. That one was focusing on green technology transition, if you will. So we wrote up a discretionary grant proposal for transition to LED lighting. on the airfield, which I think eventually is something we're going to need anyway, for no other reason the fact that I can't get parts for our old incandescent system now. You can't get them; they're outdated. No one uses them. That's larger airport. So cross fingers, knock on wood, that we're an excellent contender for that. Trying to be super friendly with the FAA who makes that decision. I think the fact that we seem to be moving towards rezoning the end of runway 29 will hopefully shine favorably on us when they're going through those grants to decide who gets that and who doesn't. We'll see. But yeah, I highly recommend. That's actually a chunk of what I do. I'm always trying to keep my eyes open for discretionary grant monies out there. We're good for this airport, and I highly recommend anybody hears anything to reach out to me and let me know too. I think it's a kind of a testament to how tuned in the city actually is a little bit. The day that grant came out, of course, all my airport folks called me, so I knew about it. But 2 people from the city also reached out to me and called me because they had gotten alerts about it also. So actually very impressed with the city on that one. When that money came out, they said, hey, there's this, giant grant coming out. So I guess that covers some of the grant parts of it anyway. And I guess while I'm talking, I would also include, I think it's great. Dan was talking about what kind of businesses that we want to attract to the airport. I think that'd be a great topic item to sit down and just have an open forum, talk about with the airport advisory board too. It's like, hey, let's talk about who are people that we as an airport want to go after. What do we want that mix to look like? So as I'm moving forward with the city and the planning department and stuff like that, and they're all talking about that we can have input from the advisory board meeting too, would be great.
I just want 2 things on the same topic.
Okay.
I'm glad the city told you.
Yeah.
The grants has been an ongoing point of frustration for me beyond the airport, that the city did not have historically a really good way to track these, apply for them. This is something Marcia and I have discussed in detail that she's pushed the city to do. So I'm actually really glad that they flagged this one. Mind you, it's $750,000, not a new runway, but
Yeah.
I'm going to be happy with a baby step at the moment as something. On Boulder, at the conference, I sat next to an attorney who's working on that deal.
Oh, really?
He would not tell me any details about it, but he did say that some point next month there's likely to be action at the Boulder City Council.
Okay.
That's all he would tell me. Lawyers care about confidentiality, apparently, but I do think it's really interesting to keep an eye on it, and I'm glad you brought it up. Vice Chair Jordan.
Further to the conversation on funding and decisions and things like that, we had a business that wanted to be based at our airport. Their aircraft were here, and then they were up in Loveland, and they ended up in Boulder. They built a huge hangar, and they have a big investment there. And then they were bought out by a bigger firm. And when when everybody was talking about scraping the Boulder airport, that was the first company I thought of, because they built a huge hangar and have a huge operation there, and they wanted to be here. It was the issue with the leases before we got the lease language. The lengths of leases changed, and they'd already made their decision. But that was one. As Smuckers, we definitely were interested in seeing Smuckers operate out of our airport, but the runway wasn't long enough, so it was the same issue. So my question is always, what do I, who don't have the pleasure of working in this every day, what do I know, or what can I do to help with this? And I'll say that for the greater we here. It's always a question of what can we do to help push the extension along, or decide we are going to go for the extension, not for the development, because we've got to have more space, obviously. With that extension, we've got to widen as well. So the fear is that we do the build and then we've boxed ourselves in and can't do the extension or add additional services at the airport. And somebody who knows how all that works much better than I do, to guide us and to say, if you want development on the airport, you need to go down this path. If you want to have a longer runway, you need to go this path. We all know that a better FBO that's just an easy one. That's low-hanging fruit as far as a decision goes. If we could get a Signature or a Shelter, somebody with a beautiful new facility, okay, we could get at least attract the jets that are already coming in. We could attract more of that, but it's really to do it. The master plan had the extension, and that was that was it. We didn't talk about the FBO. We just talked about that runway extension. And that's a 2012 master plan.
Yep.
And it was supposed to have happened by now. It was already supposed to have been done. And I joined the board when it got pushed to, I think, 2024. It got pushed, and I couldn't believe it and thought, oh God, we're never going to see it. But that was actually a firm date at one point, and there was a more firm date, like 2021. So it's been out there. There's land at the end that we don't own, and there's a whole lot that goes into it. So it's no small feat. But really, I think as a board, if we're going to ponder this, it's, do we want to see just more hangars and we can bring in all the orphans from the other airports, or do we want that extension and we want to prioritize that? And just to figure, get some direction with professional guidance. The other thing I noticed was the Mountain Wave came out this afternoon, and Davey Lane reported on a lot of stuff from the meetings. And he showed that the schools that got funding, and it was all pretty small, but it was interesting to me that they featured that, and it was the different schools and their programs. Something else to ponder is, we have the Innovation Center. They are teaching ground school there.
And I actually hooked them up with CDOT.
Did
so
you?
they
Good.
applied for
Okay,
that.
good. And so for them to get the benefit of that kind of thing, but also, again, to the bigger picture, is the fact that our school district has an aviation program, and then I always am going to go back to LPC, that we own our own utility. We have the best petri dish that anybody could come up with. And so how do we make all that work for us? We've really got a lot of assets, a lot of good things going for us. Do we focus on the education piece in the school district, and do we make them a partner on the field that is that draw for education money and things like that? So that's the stuff I don't work in all day, and I don't know how you get it done. I can think about it, but I don't know how to get it done. But I do feel like we have an Easter basket full of goodies, that if figuring out how to coalesce that into getting us ready for the pageant, to say, we can sing and we can dance and we got nice eyes, and so what can we do with what we've got? And owning our utility, having nothing but country at one end of the runway, and having plans to protect us at the other, we're really in a good position to continue to figure out what we would like to see and really come up with it, but tie in some of the other stuff.
And you reminded me, and talking about the Innovation Center, which, by the way, is amazing if you guys haven't been out there to see it. But I want to go off on my little soapbox, and I don't know if Matt knows, but I want to let him know that, have you seen that plane they're building? It was at the... So they're not going to let them ever fly it? Did you hear that? So I wanted to let you know that, because that's kind of like your thing, right? So the school system at the moment said that they'll never let them fly it. They're never going to sell it. Nothing's going to happen with it. They're going to hang it as a display. And yes, thank you. That just makes my heart hurt that they went. And if you look at the way they did that plane, it is absolutely beautiful. And I just think it would just be a great thing if in some incarnation, if that plane could fly someday, would be amazing. But I'm sorry to go off on my soapbox there. Yeah. But yeah, the innovation system, wonderful. Everything you said, I think, would be really great talking points for, like, if we do in depth when we're looking at businesses, when we're looking at attractions, stuff like that. Would be, great things to talk about. Yep.
Mr. Meester.
Quick question. It was mentioned that we may not be attracting businesses based on the fact that we have a 20-year lease with the city. And I may be wrong on this, but it's my understanding the city also has the right to terminate that lease agreement with fairly short notice. Now, if that's incorrect, please correct me.
That's the lease. So every lease is its own negotiated contract, essentially. So the starting point for a city, the lease, the boilerplate, if you will, for our airport is 30 years, actually, and then it'll vary for anyway up to the maximum FAA allowable 50 years. And that's something else that they kind of talked about, and they punctuated again at the conference this year, was that the maximum allowable is 50 years for a contract. That's something that we would probably reserve for FBOs, anyone doing major kind of investment into the airport. Would be a negotiating point. I forget. Yeah. So yes, does that answer the question? I forget where I was going.
Well,
with that.
what's the city's termination rights in terms of time frame?
Uh,
Could they come to us and say, hey, you've got 30 days?
They can't just automatically terminate any lease whenever they want. That would be a huge legal quagmire that no one would want to do. There's certain provisions in that lease that essentially put it up for, if you're not paying your rent, if et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the lease it's a contract. It's a legal agreement. You're held to the terms, and so is the city. Yeah.
Well, I guess I table this for future conversation.
Yeah.
But if we truly feel that the limitations of our lease agreement with the city is prohibiting additional business from attracting additional business here, then perhaps that's something we can put under discussion to see if we can lengthen whatever the period is or the termination time.
So we can't talk about that, but I can tell you right now that I don't have a problem doing a 50-year lease, but it's all an individual negotiation with each individual person.
So
Yeah.
Mr. Menz, I will get to you. I promise.
Yeah.
City has a hard cap at 30 years.
So
So you can do 30 plus 20 or something, but I just
Yeah.
want, the city
Yeah,
does have
exactly.
a
There
hard
you go.
cap at 30.
I'm not so concerned
and
about
that's
the term time frame.
Everything
It's a
else is
termination
negotiable.
time frame.
Yeah, understood.
So you're absolutely
Menza,
yeah,
sorry.
correct. Yeah.
So full disclosure, my wife and I tried to buy the FBO. And we had escrow money transferred, and we were fine with the seller. The city gave us a lease that was no businessman or woman would ever sign. It was a 20-year lease, and yeah, I have the copy of the lease for you. You can look at it. Glad to share it with anybody. And the lease was extremely restrictive. They had the right at any time to terminate the lease and to take all my assets. My wife and I said, there's no way. We can't invest millions of dollars here with this kind of lease. And that is a consistent theme for anybody who wants to try to buy that FBO. That's the fact. There's several other buyers that have tried to do the same thing. But at least my experience with the city is that they're not interested in selling the FBO, or they just didn't want my wife and I to be there. But either way, it was a 20-year lease, and there was nothing in that lease that would give my wife and I a warm fuzzy that we had any support or it was worth investing millions of dollars to put another hangar and grow the FBO. And so I went and bought a jet instead. And now I have a toy. And so, and it's cool, it's fun. But that is the truth and the fact that we need to figure out what we're doing on this board and how we can examine that particular lesson and see how we can help people in the future invest in Longmont. And Levi, unless you had an input on that, it was the city attorney and the other, and the other folks that made the decision on that lease, despite the fact that they said they would give us a 30-year lease initially. So, and we pulled out because we didn't want to spend our attorneys going back and forth. How many months is it going to go back and forth, attorneys, and how many bills am I going to get from my attorney every month? It wasn't worth it. So too much heartburn. So something to think about. We can talk about that offline too, but that's a problem. And so, yes, sir, you're correct that we're not getting the business we want because and I heard some rumors about the gentleman who owns Oscar Blues. He tried to do the same thing. You guys might be more familiar with it than I am, and I don't know all the nuances there, but he's a much more successful businessman than I am, and he wasn't able to do anything. So we need to come to Jesus at some point with some of these things here and see what we can do to move the ball forward. So.
Any other comments from any board members? Melinda, airshow update?
Oh, yes. How did you let that get past?
Yeah.
We're having an air show September 14th, and we're moving into where everything is dropping in now, and we'll move into publicity and all that next. I've asked them to give us a couple of more weeks to line out the food trucks and some of the things that people will recognize. We can tell them about all the air show acts, but they're not necessarily going to recognize those. But they will recognize the food trucks and some of the vendors and things like that. We're on a last push for sponsors, trying to get a couple of sponsors so that I don't worry about having to clean up the bills at the end on my own credit card. We, with our air show boss, got the FAA Form 7711 filed today. Finally, that's got all the shows. It's got our emergency response plan, which was a pretty big lift to get that done, but it was good. It felt good to get it done, and I've got to get it to the city now. And then we've got a yak. Well, we've got Red Thunder, a 3 airship yak show. The Air Force is sending a glider. They just committed to that the other day. I'm looking at Levi. He knows all this. We've got Dagmar Crescent. She's going to be flying I always have to think about it, the Game Bird. They just got a new, is it a Game Bird? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I always think of sports with that one. We've got Freeman, so she'll be flying that. She was going to be flying the Pitts, but it sounds like she'll fly the Game Bird. Bob Freeman Air Shows is going to be there. Alan Cook, and I can't remember what Alan flies, but we have locked in our paid air show partners, and then the waivers have been applied for. And I'm back to going through the UOPP. It's time to meet with police and fire, have them look through our emergency response plan from their perspective. This was written for the FAA mostly, but it encompassed everything I need to do with them. And then we've talked to economic development they're going to promote it further to get people to come in and stay the weekend and spend the night. We got Wings Over the Rockies, Exploration of Flight finally locked in. Some people who kind of penciled us in a long time ago but had not ever committed. I've really been wrestling with the AV band shell entrance, all those really tough logistics, and I think I've made a decision today. I was working with Recess Factory today, and they did our last show, and they are anxious to do this one, and they help us with the fence, the crowd line fencing, the entrance, the parking. They manage the parking. It's a big lift, and they like doing it, and so it would be exhausting for our team and our volunteers. He's going to come out to the field and have another look around and refresh his memory, look how we can extend our parking further. I was, in the past, we had an air show and we let people on the field know we were going to have an air show. It might impact them that day. This one, because of the hours and what we're doing, we've got to just say, there is an air show and you are impacted. Then we can go further down the hangar rows for parking, kind of spread that out more on the back side of the field. And then I'm not sure how, I've got to find out how to ask if we could use the space across the street, if that's even a possibility
To the
with
east?
the county, with where the farm was that the county bought.
Oh, the county bought, okay.
Yeah. And then micromodal transportation is supposed to start in July, I think, in the city. So that may be an option for us to use that to shuttle people. So there's some things that are still kind of on the fringe that'll come in later as it's, when it's appropriate. And then we've got invitations out. We've got meetings with all the cadets and explorers. So we're really into that. It's time to sign up, commit, get head counts, figure out how many T-shirts to order, things like that.
Have you been in touch with women in aviation?
99s are in,
The
and then they're
99s.
going to partner with Women in Aviation. They've been
Oh,
talking
they are?
about partnering.
Okay, good.
So I presented to their board on Tuesday night, and did ask for volunteers as well. But then they're going to present. They've got 2 other things that month, so they may have a skeleton crew.
Okay.
But they're starting to partner with WIA on their events and share a table. And I see the vendor list is filling out beautifully. Kevin's landing vendors, and then I've made offers to some of these other groups as well. ATC, Russ is wrangling a group to come over and do the ATC portion, and so it's all the Lego pieces haven't quite snapped in 100%, not 100%. 50%, but they're all hanging. They're all out on the floor, and we're putting them together. So we're there. We're at that pivotal point I've been waiting to feel like we were at.
And I would add that I've been bouncing back a little bit pushing Risk to make sure that they have everything they
Yeah,
need. That
yeah.
form
And
that you sent me
tell
back
us.
that they really wanted.
Yeah.
I keep bugging Doug, and last time he sent back said, "Hey, do they have their individual?" But so far, I keep asking him to make sure that form looks good. This form is what you want, right? And he hasn't said we've missed anything, so it's on Risk really right now
Good.
until he comes back and tells me something with that form is wrong. Also, the FAA form that finally got signed today,
Yes.
which is awesome. I went ahead and I also forwarded that to my contact at the ADO.
Oh, okay.
So they have no excuses for not saying that form hit their desk before the 3 months
Good.
that they request.
Yeah.
So I also made sure that got there too. So we should be
Fantastic.
covered bases on getting that paperwork in.
Good. Good. And then we have a meeting Saturday morning at Levi's office. He'll leave the key for me. And it's more of a work session this time. And then next month, I think I'll get the fire station. And then we'll bring back in police, fire, a couple of other organizations that have expressed interest in coming to the meetings and hearing more. So I think next month I'll try for a bigger meeting. August feels like it's going to be too late. At that point, we're really shirt sleeves up and working. But Recess Factory is going to be our backbone for the fencing and security and a lot of stuff. So he's working out the bids so that I can figure out how much, and then I've got to really dial in the budget now and see where we're at. So the work continues, working session this Saturday at 9 at Levi's office. And then if we need to do something in the evening or a different time to attract other people that want to come to that kind of a meeting. But as you know, they're working sessions, so we aren't doing fancy presentations and stuff. We're just going around the room and moving the ball forward. And again, we're always looking still for sponsors, donors. We have had a donor for lunch that's going to do lunch for the volunteers. We always need water, drinks, easy stuff that Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, any realtor, anybody who wants to slap their stickers on stuff, we welcome that. We'll always take that. But otherwise, yeah. And then I did go ahead and pick a date for September 26, 2026. It's something I had to look at for that. And then I'm talking to Recess Factory. We've been quoting $3,800 on our show, and we were over 5,000. They did parking tickets, and we were over 5,000. I thought we were, and then I had been told no, we were about 3,800, and they said no, we were between 5,000 and 6,000. For what they take cars, they do an average of 3 per car.
Okay.
And they did tickets for the cars, and so he did confirm. So 5,000 is probably a conservative. I need to say 5,000 to 7,000 probably.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I'm glad you're on all that. Mr. Dean.
Only thing I have to add, also, the Coloradans are locked in for the air show as well for the displays, for the kickoff of the car show. So I did talk to them, and they did have their meeting, and they reached out to Melinda, so that's a go as well. So
Thank you, Malcolm. Mr. Shook.
I just wanted to let everybody know last Saturday, the EAA chapter 648 had a pancake breakfast, swap meet and fly in, and it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
A lot of the community showed up. I think we served over 400 breakfasts, and the swap meet was encouraging. It wasn't great, but it was okay. And then we had raffle items, and it went real well.
Yeah, and I would echo that. They did a beautiful job. It was really good. The food was good, and the atmosphere was great, and it was wonderful. It's like a tiny little air show.
Well, so that pancake breakfast is what we'll have.
Yep.
They're going to do ours as well. And that was they were warming up, and Diane did a lot of work to get that organized for herself. And we got to see the Innovation Center, and we got to see that plane for us. CAP was there. Who else? We had several players there that'll be there for our show. So it was good. What'd you say?
I said we were there.
You
Yeah.
were there.
We had our,
Yeah.
We did have Mach 7 Aero there, repping.
yeah.
I appreciate the update, Steve. Anyone else have anything they want to chime in on here? Levi, anything you missed from you?
Should be good.
All right. I've got a lot of future agenda items from this discussion, so we'll incorporate some things going forward. But for now, I'm going to call the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.